spirit that they called aqua vitae. Aqua vitae in Latin, water of life. The monks made it for medicinal purposes, to make people feel better, to make them cure them of diseases and viruses. And they worked, and it became very popular. Label is a circle. This circle refers to what I refer to as the charmed circle. You see the two stills beneath you. On your right hand side you'll have the wash still, about 5,000 litre capacity. On your left you have the spirit still, about 3,750 litres capacity. In the middle you see the spirit safe. You'll notice there's a huge amount of activity going on in both stills just now. Above your head you'll see two line arms, descending line arms that are connected through the stills to condensers behind you and a purifier as well. You'll notice these are very tall, thin stills made of copper. These are by volume ratio the two tallest stills in Scotland. They are not the tallest stills. The tallest stills are Glenmorangie up near Tame in the north of Scotland. But these are very tall, thin stills. The idea is to maximise the amount of distillate that is flowing up and contacting with the copper. The copper takes away some of the impurities from the spirit as it distills up the neck and northern swan neck and down the line arm. The condensers behind you are long, tall tubes full of cold water. When the distillate comes up, down the line arm, it hits the cold water, turns back into a liquid, then flows back down into the spirit safe. We'll talk a lot about that downstairs. But it's just quite nice to see them from up here. This is the cold water. That's the cold water feeding into the condenser, yeah. The wine to create what we're trying to create, which is that middle section, the heart, the best part. And you can see that now flowing into the left-hand glass bowl. That is the heart. That is the whiskey that we're going to take and mature. It comes off still around about 67 to 70% alcohol by volume. We are a craft-based distillery, so we have high ambitions. We want to create unique spirit. We want to try and explore a combination of different malts, different yeasts, to create lovely, lovely flavours. It is our ultimate aim to create what we refer to also as excellence in spirit making. Excellence. So we can make our own unique flavours based on our own recipes that distillers will conjure up and try out. Okay, so basically what we need to make gin is a particular botanical, and that botanical is juniper. You said Jupiter, that's a planet. Juniper is a seed, and it's got lovely citrusy sweet flavours, so we have to have a botanical of juniper to create gin. Many gins you might be familiar with have many, many different types of botanicals. Different fruits, different flowers, different spices, also different types of combinations of flavours that would actually create those unique flavours in our gins, okay? We only have one, juniper. That juniper comes from Italy, Italian juniper. However, there are many different types of juniper that could be available. This one is a smoked juniper.
Is it similar to like pepper?
It's very similar, it's a seed, yeah, it's a kind of coniferous seed. It grows in hot countries. That's Moroccan juniper. This is my favourite, Scottish juniper. What do we make our gin from? Well, we have obviously our Italian juniper, but we also add what we call two modifiers to our gin. What do I mean by a modifier? A modifier changes the characteristics of the gin. Speak to any chef when they're making their fish or their steaks or their meats. What they will do is they will season it with something called sea salt, sea salt. This sea salt is all the way from the Isle of Skye as well. And what that does is enhances the flavours, or the citrusy flavours of the juniper during the maceration process. Sea salt. It also takes away some of the edges of the ethanol in the gin, so it softens it a little bit in your mouth. The second modifier is beeswax, buzzy beeswax from East Lothian bees. What does the beeswax do in the maceration? It makes a much creamier, softer mouth feel when you're actually drinking the gin. So in front of us we have our pilot still. On the left here we have a large stainless steel vessel which is approximately 250 litres capacity. We fill that down to about 200 litres of grain neutral spirit. industrially produced grain spirit. Tasteless, around about 60 to 70% alcohol by volume. We fill a large muslin bag with about 6 kilos of Italian juniper, and we hang it on a little hook inside there, sitting inside the grain neutral spirit. What we refer to as maceration, steeping, soaking. We leave that soaking between about 16 and 20 hours, allowing those flavors, the juniper, to flood into the spirit. Then we add the sea salt and the beeswax, and we heat it up to about 80 degrees centigrade. The alcohol boils, rises up the neck into this copper reflux, contact with the copper to remove any of the impurities, over the top and down into our condenser, large column full of cold water pipes. The 80 degrees vapor comes back out and condenses into gin. Strong alcoholic gin. Too strong to consume without knocking your head off. So what we do is we bring it down to around about 43 to 47% alcohol by volume by adding lots of water. So in that process, we can make about 600 bottles of gin, 70cl gin, in one run. This vessel in the middle is what we call our vacuum basket. So we can add flavors if we're commissioned to do so, rather than what I was telling you there about the manipulation of the juniper. So often is the case if we could put soft botanicals in there, like strawberries, raspberries, coffees, bananas, all sorts of things in there, and the vapor can be redirected into this vacuum basket, and it can extract the flavors from those soft botanicals, so when it comes through the condenser, it has those flavors contacted, embedded in those spirits. Over here we have Elliot, our mad professor and distiller. He's trying out lots of different samples using that small baby still. It's quite a nice way of creating unique flavors and trying them out for ultimately make larger batches of it. Interestingly enough, one of Elliot's colleagues, Callum, he made a drumstick gin a while ago. It was quite sweet and he was quite proud of it. So, we've gone through the fermentation, distillation. We now have the final phase before bottling, which is what we refer to as maturation. Maturation is where, under the regulations of the Scottish Whisky Association, we have to have laid our spirit in oak casks, hogsheads, for a minimum of 3 years. What do I mean by single Scottish malt whisky? Single refers to the productions all done in one distillery, a single distillery. Blended whiskies, like Johnnie Walker, come from different distilleries. You may have read about Johnnie Walker, the four corners of Johnnie Walker. They come from Clynelish, Cardew, Glenkinchie and Kalila. So basically we make everything in one distillery here. That means it's single. Malt means we're using the malt, the malted barley, to create those flavors through the fermentation process. Scottish, any ideas? It means it has to be made in Scotland. It has to be produced, fermented, distilled, bottled, matured in Scotland. What we're called an aged new make. So it's a new make, a Vienna malt that we put into a cask for around about 632 days. So it's just under 2 years old. Okay, but what we're trying to do is create those unique flavors in an American virgin oak bourbon barrel. So you're getting little flavors. You're also getting a slight colour. So slightly, it's already starting to yellow, it's already starting to take away some of the flavors from inside the cask. But it's not those magic 3 years yet, so it cannot be called whiskey. It has to be called a new made spirit or an unmatured whiskey. Okay. So, what is a cask and how do we use it? Well, when I talked about single Scottish malt whiskey, the maturation process is very broad in terms of what types of casks can be used. We can use bourbon barrels, we can use wine casks, we can use rum casks, port casks, we can use sherry casks, we can use casado casks, we can use tequila casks, use all sorts of different casks, particularly because they give different flavors. Bourbon, American virgin oak bourbon. America make their own bourbon barrels to mature their own American whiskies in. Your Jack Daniels, your Jim Beam. They build those barrels, they make them out of American oak, and they heavily char the inside. They char it, they burn inside, what we call alligator char. and they leave their spirit to mature in there for about 2 to 4 years, and then they bottle it. They do not use the barrels again, they only use them once, which is a shame, but not for us, because we get a plentiful supply of them coming across the pond from America that we can use to add those lovely sweet caramelly flavours to our whiskey. So bourbon barrels, very popular. You'll read lots of labels about bourbon maturation. European oak hogsheads, very much favoured for storing wines and ports. Very much in Germany and France and Italy, they use them for Cabernet Sauvignons, Merlots, all sorts of different types of Madeira wines as well. Great for maturation of whiskey because it gets lovely fruit, dark, rich, great notes going into the spirit. Okay, so we love European oak casks. So, when we mature, the cask age is the age of a whiskey is the age it's spent in an oak cask. Not in the bottle under your bed, not in the bottle hidden in your cupboard, it's how long it's actually spent in an oak cask during the maturation. We could take a 20-year-old spirit from a sherry cask and we could marry it with a 10-year-old from a port cask and marry it with, say, 5-year-olds from bourbon. That is called vatting. By vatting, still in single distillery, you're creating a vatted, unique flavour of combinations of flavours from different casks at different ages. Slangy vat. And slangy vat is good health in Scottish. So slangy vat to you all, thank you very much, and I hope you've enjoyed it.
വിസ്കി ടൂർ കഴിഞ്ഞ് ഞങ്ങൾ പുറത്തേക്ക് ഇറങ്ങുവാണ്. അത് ടേസ്റ്റ് എല്ലാം ചെയ്തു. ഞങ്ങൾ ബസ്സിന് വേണ്ടി നോക്കിയിരിക്കുകയാണ്. നമ്മുടെ ബസ് വരുന്നുണ്ട്.
ഇന്നത്തെ വീഡിയോ ഇവിടെ അവസാനിപ്പിക്കുകയാണ്. പുതിയ വീഡിയോകളുമായിട്ട് അടുത്ത ദിവസങ്ങളിൽ വീണ്ടും കാണാം.